Ladies and gentlemen, the best chess player in the world right now is named Magnus Carlsen. And as of October 5th, 2023, he is on a rampage. Whether it's to prove a point, whether it's just a streak of good luck, this man is currently playing the European Club Cup, which is a team tournament, and that is currently based in Albania, and Magnus is unstoppable. Now, a couple of days ago, I covered a game that he played against the 2500 Grandmaster to show you the difference between World Champion caliber and 2500 Grandmaster caliber. In today's video, we're going to continue this series of one Magnus game in a video where I deep dive it. You're going to have to do your best to follow along. You're going to have to learn a couple of things and just enjoy the show because what Magnus is doing is sensational. He is back up to nearly 2,850 ELO. He was 2865 at the beginning of 2022. So it's been nearly 2 years since he's kind of gotten back to completely unstoppable heights. Let's watch this game. Magnus opens with pawn to e4. Now his opponent, this is big. His opponent is of the next generation. Vincent Keimer is part of the generation of teenagers and 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds who are going to be at the top of chess once guys like Magnus, Hikaru, and that entire generation frankly get too old, okay? Because that's how chess goes. Your brain stops working at 35 and 40. It's a miracle it can even make it that far, and nobody goes crazy because this board game is not that interesting. So Keimer is of the next generation, and Keimer even beat Magnus when they played at the World Cup a couple of months ago. In fact, Keimer was on the verge of knocking Magnus out of the World Cup, and then he failed to do so because he was winning, and he already won a game. So now Magnus has to bury the young generation into the ground. But credit to Vincent, who shows up with a Sicilian defense. The Sicilian is the most combative opening that you could play as black, meaning create winning chances for yourself against e4 without taking huge risk. I mean, you could create winning chances for yourself by playing the Fred, which is this, but you'd be kind of an idiot. The Fred is technically this. Technically, this is the Fred, but anyway. C5. Knight f3. Keimer plays d6, Magnus plays d4, and kind of interesting time spent. Magnus seemingly was late to the game. 5 minutes late to the game. He didn't think for 5 minutes on move one. I think he just probably was just enjoying a walk or something. Knight or Sicilian. Okay? This is the most complex opening that there is in chess, and in this position, white can play no less than like 15 moves. Bishop e3 and bishop g5 are the main lines. Bishop c4 is the third main line. White can basically move this queen to any square nowadays. White can also play bishop d3. White can play a3 and a4. White has played b3. I don't think white has played b4. f3, f4, g3, h3, h4, rook g1. Moving the knight as well. White has tried everything. Literally everything. Magnus plays bishop c4. This is one of the main lines. And the major idea of this move is to fight for the d5 square. And black's main line e5 is a little bit less potent here because white is already securing control of that square. So if black plays the traditional main line, which is pawn to e5, black does not easily get a bishop to e6. Right, if white plays bishop c4, e5, and something like knight f5, something like bishop e6 is not particularly good because white can play bishop b3 or queen d3 and have permanent pressure on this pawn while also fighting for that square. And if black takes the knight, which makes a lot of sense, white is going to control this square for a minute. But obviously, you can also just go back to e2 and just have a bishop there. E6, okay? This is now, this is called the Sozin bishop c4. And this is the Scheveningen variation. Scheveningen, it basically, black puts a bunch of pawns on 6th rank. Now, here Magnus does what Magnus does best, which is go into a main line of an opening, play like the 5th most popular move, which does not necessarily have an advantageous score in the database, meaning black might win more than white, but he says, I'm Magnus Carlsen, so I get to do what I want. Games here generally go castles, the bishop goes back to b3, f4 might be played in the future, and queen f3 is played, and many, many lines of that have been played. Magnus plays a4. You will notice he spent 3 minutes. Maybe he got locked in the same bathroom he was locked in where it took him 5 minutes to get to the board. a4 is a very straightforward move. You are preventing black from playing b5. Furthermore, you in the future yourself might play a5, which actually just basically prevents this pawn from moving, period, because if you trade, that trade really benefits white, because white will get an active rook pointing at a pawn. Now, the drawback of this move is that it wastes time. Wastes. It's clearly spending time on something that might not be of the utmost importance. It's a slightly different way to play the position. Black now gets very quick development with bishop e7 and castles, but that's fine. And this bishop, and just in general, the queen side might be a little bit loose, right? Just a little bit looser than if the pawn was on a2. Things would kind of be very well protected. So now we have a big moment in the game. Also, you will notice that Vincent in this position spent his time, right? He spent 6 minutes, which means already this is an admission from Vincent. All right, I'm on my own, right? Because Vincent probably spent hours and hours and hours on many variations, and the move a4 is just very clearly like, we have to play chess against each other. You have no more prep. Castles, castles. Okay. Magnus develops his bishop to e3. Now, what's amazing is that the computer is already trying to have the audacity to say that black could be better. Now, after spending a little time and realizing it's an idiot, it's just saying the position is equal. Is this move a worthy investment of tempo? Remember, in these positions, white puts the bishop here, plays f4, and puts the queen on f3. Clearly, that is not what Magnus is doing. Okay? Vincent spends time and plays queen c7. Nobody dislikes that move. Very simple and straightforward attack on the bishop. But also, black can play knight c6. This is another way of developing this position with a very simple intention to open up the b file for the rook and to have a lot of support for the pawn, to play pawn to d5, which would then further open up the queen and the bishop could go to the b4 square, which was weakened by the a4 pawn push. So again, with white, you play a4 and try to play a5 to restrict black's queenside play, but you potentially weaken your dark squares on the king side. Give and take, just like in life. Unless you're a billionaire, then all you do is take. So, queen c7. I'm going to offend a few people with that comment. People are going to be watching like, well, they create jobs. And I'm going to be like, stop complaining. It was a joke. Let's focus on the chess. Queen to c7 attacks the bishop on c4. Now, again, normally when the pawn is here, the bishop goes here. Remember, what is the difference between these two lines? Castles, let's say black plays bishop e7, white plays bishop e3, or let's say f4. This, f4, queen. Like, black at some point is going to play b5 and white is going to go here. The difference in the game is that you don't have to play bishop b3. In fact, if you put your bishop on b3, black will go here and try to get it anyway. And then if you try to go a5 and do your whole plan, because that's what Gotham said, now knight c5 and this is hanging. Suddenly you're going to lose your bishop, right? Maybe I don't even have to take it, but let's just say I do. I mean, is this really what white wants? Just gave away a bishop? I don't necessarily think so, which is why Magnus is fully aware of that, and after queen c7, he plays queen e2. So the bishop is now defended, and the major question is, how is black going to develop his Najdorf position if he's not allowed to move his b-pawn? This is typical Magnus stuff that he does to players. He makes them uncomfortable in their opening, right? So Vincent wants to play Najdorf. Magnus like, nope, you got to deal with my position now. Vincent spends a lot of time now. He spends 13 minutes, which is... 13 minutes is a long time, okay? Especially in chess. Knight c6 is a possibility. Knight bd7 is a possibility to go here, here, or here and play rook b8 and then try to move your pawn, or maybe b6 and bishop b7, right? Vincent probably calculated knight bd7, probably calculated, first of all, you got to calculate this sacrifice by white, which would win this. Probably realize it's not necessarily so good. Then after knight bd7, you got to calculate f4, and if you play knight b6 attacking this, that just kind of plays directly into white's plan. You probably don't want to do that. What if you play knight c5 attacking the pawn on e4? Maybe white just goes here or here. Like, the possibilities are really, really endless. I mean, you have to calculate all of this stuff. Vincent decides to play bishop to d7. By playing bishop to d7, you are openly admitting you are going to play knight c6. There is no alternative. None. You have to play knight c6. And then maybe you're going to play on these files in the future. Bishop d7 is an interesting move. It's interesting he developed the bishop before the knight. What does Magnus do? He finishes his plan. White can play a couple of things here. King h1, preparing for a kingside attack. Always decent in a Sicilian. h3, waiting move, preparing g4 in the future, nothing can go to the g4 square. a5, as was part of the plan to restrict the queen side. All moves make sense. After something like take, now the bishop could go to b6, which is actually quite annoying, and the pawn on a6 hangs. Oops. And white's pass pawn is very powerful. So it's a very tense moment. Magnus plays a5. You'll notice that he spent another 7 minutes. He plays a5, and now black has to play knight c6. Unfortunately, here, Vincent gets naughty thoughts in his head. And he decides, I don't think Magnus's position makes sense. Instead of playing knight c6, which is the final piece of the development puzzle, and getting into a position that looks like this, and then white would probably play bishop d3 or f3. It's a very tense position. The game has much time to develop. Vincent here gets a naughty thought and plays knight g4. Knight g4 has a very straightforward idea. Black wants to take the bishop, and you cannot take the knight because the bishop is hanging. So the queen would need to go here and here, which is obviously not really what white wants, to give up his bishop. However, there are attacking possibilities in the future. They don't work right now. The most incredible thing about this game is that this happened in June of 2023. This exact position. White was a 2300 and black was a 2600 rated grandmaster who played knight g4, which is a blunder. It doesn't quite make sense how it's a blunder, but it's a blunder. So this happened before, and in that game, white played this, which is the wrong move. And Magnus finds the best move. Magnus now gets credited with a brilliant move, as in this position, he plays knight to f5. Knight to f5, spotted within 5 minutes. So Vincent spends 22 minutes on a move. 22 minutes, clearly uncomfortable, right? In this position, 13 minutes. And on the very next move, another 20 minutes? But like, here's the thing. This is how you know you've kind of lost the thread. You've lost confidence. You spent 13 minutes on bishop d7. You damn well know you're playing knight c6 on the next move. Something happened here. Vincent didn't like something. So he goes here instead. Now he's down 23 minutes. And knight to f5 is dynamite. The idea of this move is quite simple. You threaten a bishop. And if you get taken, the d5 square is free. So you go here, hitting this and this. Black has to go here, which defends this. And now you attack the queen. Now black has to go here. And now you have knight c7, but you also have this. Now this is hanging and this is hanging. And black is lost. Black can play knight e5. Now white plays queen c7. White also has the luxury of getting the bishop out of harm's way, and the rook is just trapped. And if you play rook a7 with the brilliant idea to go here and here, I go back. Now the rook is hanging, and this is hanging, and then it's a fork. So the whole position completely falls apart. You know why it falls apart? Because black is severely restricted on the queen side. Normally in the Knight of Sicilian, when you play this move a6 on move 5, where is it? Over here, you're going to play b5. You play b5 8 out of 10 games, 9 out of 10 games. If you don't play b5, you play b6. b6, that is how the Knight Orf works in basically every game. You will play e5, bishop e6, knight bd7, and b5 because white is going to castle this way. Now, because of the way Magnus has played this queenside clamp, positionally, black is in dire straits. Knight f5 is a violent move. Now, bishop f6. Look at this. Look at Vincent's last 3 moves. 13 minutes, 22 minutes, another 16 minutes. You know what happened here? Vincent knew it was over. That might be, you know, that might be the hyperbole in me. I might be like one of those sports journalists that's like, oh, he knew it was over. Like at this point, you are really unhappy because if you worked on something for 20 minutes, like a Lego set, and somebody came over and knocked it over, you'd be upset. You'd want to fight them. You would be angry. What if they pushed it over and then vanished? Like you couldn't even do anything to them. You would be like this, you know what? Now, what if you did it yourself? What if you did it? What if you built this beautiful thing and then you knocked it over? You'd be upset, right? Bishop f6. And now Magnus continues to turn the screw. You ever try to take a cap off of a jar that you screwed on too tight? Bishop to b6. The queen slides forward. Now here, Magnus has a ridiculous stockfish move. So again, his knight is hanging. This can't go here because of that. In this position, Magnus can play bishop to d5, which is a disgusting little move. If the queen goes back, the queen gets trapped. Look at this, the anchor on the queen side, the tightening of the screw, the positional clamp. That's all Magnus wanted when he played a4, and it worked out. Now, if take, then e takes. With the same idea, black can actually sack the queen and then get 3 pieces. And I think Magnus didn't like something here. I think he did. I just think he didn't like something. I think maybe he thought black gets a knight, a bishop, and a knight for a queen, and it's not that terrible. And I gotta tell you, you know, the more the computer thinks about it, the computer is kind of, yeah, it's like maybe bishop d5 is not the best move. But that was its top computer suggestion first. So Magnus plays knight d4. So now his knight is no longer hanging. This knight is kind of under fire, but again, still pressure here. So Vincent goes back to c8. And Magnus goes back to b3. Little dance of the pieces, right? The queen sees the bishop. So Magnus just goes here. Now, Vincent's going to start fighting back. He finally got out of the danger, but black is still very awkward over here. It's very difficult for him to develop. So he moves his knight out of the way. Magnus plays a straightforward move. Rook to d1. He has clamped the queen side. His bishop is on its post, long term, looking over here. The knights are powerful, potential to drive anywhere into the position. What is the first domino that is going to fall, that is going to end the black position? Can you think like Magnus Carlsen? In this position, white has fully developed, white has castled, all of white's pieces stand on active squares. Which move will cause the beginning of the end of the black position? Black goes here, offering an exchange. The move is f4. You see, black plays bishop to d8, trying to trade pieces with you. But you don't have to do anything. The reason why f4 is so strong is because pawns need to lead the attack. The pieces stand behind the pawns. First we kick the knight out of the center, then we play f5, knocking on the door. Magnus is the landlord and rent is 3 months late, and black can't do anything. Literally, 6 of black's 8 pieces are on the back rank. They are basically sitting there in their barracks, waiting for white to arrive and start a fight. And you're either going to be able to fight back or you're not. And let me tell you something, getting all your pieces restricted on the back rank and then trying to fight back, that's not going to work. You need something. Knight ec6, Magnus marches forward with pawn to f5. Vincent removes the bishop from the board, but AB. And the clamp is gone, but the restriction is still there. Now Vincent trades another set of pieces with the intention of removing some of white's attack. And he plays queen c5. Queen to f2. Black still has 4 out of 6 pieces completely stuck on the back rank. f6 is knocking on the door. fe is winning for white. We have e takes f5 by Vincent. Now Magnus recaptures, and f6 is still knocking on the door. The bishop slides forward to free up space for the knight. I will remind you that bishop moved to d7 on the 10th move of the game to make room for the knight to develop. Look how long it took black to finally bring the knight out. Pawn to f6 is knocking on the door. If black takes, it's just an open invitation for white to pillage, queen f6, and then bishop takes f7. And if you don't do anything, if you play g6, I'll go here, and then I'll go here, and then I will mate you. Like, the game is just going to end in a few moves. So Vincent finally develops his knight. But Magnus takes on g7. What do you do if you're playing with black? Now I have 3 cannons pointed at the f7 square. You got to take. And Magnus plays the best move in the position. The best move in the position. A 28-40 elo move here. You can give a check. You can give a check. But the best move in this position is bishop to d5. And the reason why that move is so good is because you just want to take on c6, and you don't have to checkmate. You can use the threat of an attack in chess to ruin your opponent's position. That is what Magnus did. The pawns are split. This pawn is a complete desolate island, and if white gets in over here, the b pawn is going to promote. Black doesn't have time. If black plays knight takes b6, queen f6 is checkmate in a few moves. So if black plays queen takes b6, then I'm still going to take on c6. If you go here, you relinquish the pin so I can start an attack. And if you do this, you're going to lose this pawn in the long run. And I'm going to go here. And soon, white is going to have 24 points, 22 points rather, of material firing away at this black king. Can black survive? Probably, but he's too emotionally damaged. Pawn to f5 is what Vincent plays. Magnus removes the bishop from the board. You cannot take because the pawn will end up marching forward. Rook fd1, pressure on d6, knight d5, knight f4, takes, knight d5, the queen moves, and knight f4 ends the game because there's a threat on e6, and there is absolutely nothing to be done. You can stop it, but I take, I still will get to the king, and I'm going to win the game. And that is how Magnus got it done. Magnus Carlsen wins a spectacular game from start to finish. He had a brilliant move. His estimated elo was well past 3,000, and the younger generation still has to wait a little bit. An amazing game. 99% accurate, and the brilliancy in the middle game, knight f5 to clear out the way. Just awesome. Let's keep watching. 2850 is on the horizon. He's got another tournament after this. He still has games to play. 4 out of 4 undefeated. Let me know if you enjoy these deep dives into one game. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.